The district convention season started off yesterday. You had two conventions, one in District 7 in Clinton, North Carolina, and then one in District 10 in Lincolnton, North Carolina. Notice the presidential Clinton, Lincoln, kind of cool. And those were the only conventions that were on that date. Next Saturday, the 13th, and then on the 27th. Oh boy. Everybody else is going to have their convention. And if you're a candidate running for office, especially if you're a candidate running for chair or vice chair, you really have to pick your spots. It's just unfortunate that the districts and counties want to gang up, so you can go to as little as few counties and districts as possible. Now, a little bit of point of personal privilege here. I first have to say thank you. Thank you to you, the viewer and the listener of this YouTube channel. I've seen a little bit of growth in the last month or so. So I want to say thank you for that. Viewership is up. It's not up by leaps and bounds, but it is up slightly because the topics that I cover on this YouTube channel are very organic, I guess is the word I want to say there. They're not mainstream by any means necessary, but I do have a friend from Georgia. We're now friends on Facebook, and he just started watching the videos on here, and cool. And he's a fellow Republican, active down there in his county party. And then I have a friend in North Carolina who actually one day took a trip he's in Harnett County, drove from Harnett to Charlotte, and on his way, looked at YouTube, seeing if there's any convention videos up, and said, "Hey, I found this guy's your videos, and thank you." He's in the media also. His YouTube channel is Harnett GOP, HARNETT. His style of video is a little bit different than mine. My video, I go to the event, I take lots of notes, and then I come back and I give you a summation and analysis of the events that happened on that particular day. This gentleman's video out in Harnett County, he just takes his camera with him to the political event, shoots the video, and posts on YouTube. So we're not competing with each other. Both our channels are good supplements to each other because there have been times when I've covered a convention and he's taken video of a speaker, and I just I summarize what the speaker says, and I might have missed a couple things. So you might want to watch my video and his video to get the whole pie. Okay. And the county convention videos, I still have like 5 or 6 of them to do, but the events of yesterday's district convention and this past week have been hot. I mean, it's been boiling hot. As Ron Matz, WJZ TV in Baltimore, used to say, the tidbits are smoking in Tinseltown, baby. Ron Matz, he's retired now, but he was a great reporter for WJZ. And about once a week on their morning show back in the 90s with Don Scott and Marty Bass, they would have this segment called Harry Horneye from Hollywood. And I didn't notice at the time, but this was actually a parody of like Entertainment Tonight or something. But Ron Matz would play Harry Horneye, and they would have him like on a porch by a pool somewhere in Baltimore, which would actually act somewhere. He was supposed to be somewhere in LA giving you entertainment news. So, but let me tell you, the tidbits are smoking in Tinseltown, hon. Just when a week ago, we're shooting this on a Sunday. A week ago, last Sunday the 31st, we had 2 candidates running for chair and 2 candidates for vice chair. On Monday, April 1st, at first people thought this was an April Fool's joke, Robin Hayes issued a letter of resignation. In other words, what he said is that he was going to finish up his term, which ends at the June state convention, and that would be it for him. He would not seek another term as office for the chairman of the North Carolina Republican Party. Well, then Tuesday morning rolls around, and boy, do we get this. Hat tip WBTV, CBS Charlotte, and the Daily Haymaker as I read you the following. Okay, a federal grand jury has indicted multiple people in connection with an ongoing investigation involving donations made to the North Carolina Republican Party. NCGOP Chairman Robin Hayes, who spent a decade in Congress representing a district that stretched from the Charlotte area to Fayetteville, surrendered himself to authorities and made a first appearance at the U.S. Courthouse in Charlotte on Tuesday, April 2nd. The charges centered around a wealthy Durham businessman named Greg Lindberg, who has been under the microscope of federal investigators for white-collar crimes related to his business empire, and later for contributions he made to politicians in North Carolina. Hayes and Lindberg were both indicted Tuesday on charges related to honest services wire fraud for attempting to bribe NC Insurance Commissioner Mike Causey. Causey is not being charged in this case. Lindberg was also indicted and made a first appearance in court. Two other people who worked for Lindberg, John Gray and John Palermo. Palermo is the former chairman of the Chatham County Republican Party, which also got a sizable contribution from Lindberg during Palermo's reign. But Gray and Palermo also appeared in court in connection to the indictments. Lindberg made sizable contributions to both political parties, campaign finance records show, including a six-figure contribution to the North Carolina Democratic Party and nearly $2 million to the North Carolina Republican Party. A portion of Lindberg's contribution to the NCGOP, $240,000, was then forwarded to North Carolina Insurance Commissioner Mike Causey, who is also a Republican. In October 2018, NCGOP Executive Director Dallas Woodhouse confirmed to WBTV Charlotte that the party sent Causey the money, but said it was legal because he said the party steered the money to Causey after Lindberg made the contribution. In March, WBTV reported that Causey made a secret recording of a meeting between Lindberg and associate, as well as Mike Causey and Robin Hayes. During the meeting, multiple sources familiar with the recording told WBTV Lindberg and Hayes reached an agreement for the NCGOP to pass $240,000 of Lindberg's contribution to Causey's campaign. In addition to making political contributions, Lindberg also had a business relationship with former senior officials at the North Carolina Department of Insurance, including former Insurance Commissioner Wayne Goodwin, who lost to Causey in the 2016 election and who is now chairman of the North Carolina Democratic Party. WBTV first reported last October that Goodwin worked for Lindberg along with two other NC Department of Insurance employees. Okay. Wow. So now we've gone, the races have gone from two chairman candidates to three chairman candidates, but in the vice chair we used to have two candidates for vice chair. Now we only have one as of right now. Now still this can change, and we still have 2 months till the convention, and anybody can nominate themselves for chair and vice chair up to the actual election of the chair and vice chair, which does not happen until Saturday, June, I believe it's the 8th or 9th, somewhere around there. But until that date, this race is still very much wide open. And I will talk a little bit more about the chair candidates a little bit later on a short level, but I will also have a video up and probably sometime a week before the convention about who I'm endorsing and why and that sort of thing. But anyway, I want to thank the good people of the 10th District for having this convention. I want to thank the Lincoln County Republican Party as well, and the town of Lincolnton, and the Lincolnton Cultural Center for putting this event on. I saw in the announcement that they were charging a $10 fee to attend the convention, but when I got there and I told them I was a guest, I'd have to pay a fee, which is really cool because, because I told you all before about Forsyth County and the train wreck that was. Oh boy, I had to pay the $10 fee and then I almost got kicked out. Kind of odd. But anyway, that was then, this is now, right? Okay, so he started the convention at 10:03 a.m. Michael LaPaglia, who I talked about before, gave a speech on his candidacy for Secretary of State. And then we have Chad Brown, who's also run for Secretary of State. And so this will be a Republican primary. But Chad Brown says, look, small business growth is key. We need more efficiency and we need to streamline the process. Chad Brown is also Gaston County Commissioner, and apparently he was in he played with the baseball in the Orioles minor league system for a number of years as well. So we'll see if that'll influence my vote, because I'm a big Orioles fan. We'll see. Next we have Craig Collins, who is speaking on behalf of Supreme Court and North Carolina Supreme Court candidates Paul Newby and Jefferson Griffin. Craig Collins is a district court judge out of Gaston County. He was a former chair of the 10th Congressional District, and he ran unsuccessfully in 2015 to be the state party chairman. But he said that he believes, and he has a plan that he's working on with Mr. Newby, Justice Newby and Justice Griffin, to take the Supreme Court from a 6-1 Democrat majority down to only a 4-3 Democrat majority in 2020. And then 2022, he says we can get it back to a 6-1 Republican majority. He also says the Court of Appeals can go from a 7-8 to an 8. This Court of Appeals can go from an 8-7 Democrat majority to an 11-4 GOP majority as well. Craig Collins also wanted the audience to know that these judicial candidates run on 8-year terms. So remember, when you go to vote for judges, you need to really research and vet these judicial candidates, because this is an 8-year commitment they're running on. And this, if you pick the wrong justices, this 8 years is a very long time, especially in politics, where a year feels like an eternity. Next, we have a state auditor candidate, Anthony Street. And what's interesting about Anthony is he has really he's done a pretty good job of traveling around the state. He's based out in Brunswick County, and what was weird is I saw him at the Mecklenburg County Republican Party convention. And what was weird is that Brunswick County was having their convention the same day. Also, today's convention in the 10th District in Lincolnton, well, District 7, which is Brunswick County's area, was having their convention on the same date too. So I would assume and hope for Mr. Street's case that he has that Brunswick County and most of southeast North Carolina, the vote locked up in his favor. But he basically, I've talked about him before a little bit as a candidate. So the purpose of these videos, I try not to repeat myself, because, if I tell you, talk about Anthony Street in every single video, it would get very repetitive, so I try not to do that. But Anthony Street wanted to talk about, he talked about 2014, there's a CNN report that cited that the University of North Carolina university system had 18 years of academic fraud. So he says one of his priorities if he gets elected to the state auditor post is going to be to clean up that fraud at the collegiate level. Now we have probably the most important part of Saturday's convention, and that is the race for who's going to be the next chairman of the North Carolina Republican Party. First off, we have John Lewis. And what you need to know about John Lewis is John Lewis just got elected to legal counsel on the NCGOP back on February the 9th. And now, about a month ago, though, he announced he was going to run for vice chair. And then, seconds after Robin Hayes got indicted, he decided he wanted to bump up to chair. So, it just appears this is a gentleman who is just shoots from the hip a lot. And when I see the word steady and leadership in his little postcard that he gave me yesterday, I think the word steady is a bit, for a guy who jumped from position to position like a jack in the box. It just seems a bit misleading, in my opinion. But let me read to you what his goals are if he gets elected chairman. He wants to be a transparent and accessible chairman. He wants to provide expanded legal resources to the party. He wants to expand our Nation Builder presence online. If you don't know what Nation Builder is, that is most of the county parties here in North Carolina, and the Republican level at least, I could care less about the Democrats, but at the Republican Party county level, most of the websites are built with this program called Nation Builder. And also what Nation Builder is not just website development, it's also basically your get out the vote materials, okay, that person lives on Elm Street, they're Republican, but they haven't voted since 2010, we need to reach out to them. It has that kind of information capability as well. Also, it says on John Lewis's little card here, hire a full-time judicial coordinator to assist our judicial candidates. And finally, last but certainly not least, make sure the NCGOP is in lockstep with President Trump's campaign. One final thing I'll say about John Lewis, if you're a game show junkie like I am, he looks and acts a lot like Pat Finn from the Shop Till You Drop game show in the 90s. He has that same charisma and that same presence when he's at the podium giving a speech, I noticed. So that is one nice thing I'll say about John Lewis. But otherwise, this is essentially he's the establishment candidate in the chairman's race. And this is the establishment's way of saying, okay, well, Grandpa got indicted, so let's just go ahead and put up grandson as candidate, even though John Lewis is not related to Robin Hayes. The establishment really, they just want somebody who's gonna follow in Hayes' footsteps, except for the indictment, obviously. But they want somebody who is as close to Hayes on leadership and inter-party policy as he is. Next candidate is a guy by the name of Michael Whatley, and the interesting thing with Mr. Whatley is I got to the interesting thing about Michael Whatley, I got to the convention was held at a theater hall. I get to the theater hall probably a good 45 minutes before the convention even began. Okay, I was sitting towards the back. I was sitting in the center part of the theater towards the back because I'm a guest. So if you're a guest at any of these conventions, please try and sit towards the back and let the delegates have as much space as possible. That's a little etiquette rule there. But anyway, Mr. Whatley was walking around the whole theater hall, okay? And, he talked to everybody in the theater hall. And he said hi and shook hands to everybody. But guess who he never communicated with? Me, yeah. So, I mean, that right there, that'll take about 20 points off my evaluation score at the beginning. But, yeah. So let's get into who Michael Whatley is, shall we? He is currently lives in Gaston County, so he got a lot of cheers and applause at this convention because Gaston County is like 10 miles south of Lincolnton County. He went to high school, Watauga High School, I guess is in Boone, North Carolina, up in northwest part of the state. But he had a Jesse Helms for Senate bumper sticker back in the mid-'80s, and sure enough, he became a young Republican coordinator for the Helms campaign then. In 2000, he spent 34 days on the Florida recount in the Bush versus Gore race. 2004, he was named Chief of Staff for Elizabeth Dole. And in 2016, he was on the North Carolina for Trump team and organized rallies for 285,000 people. He has a goal. He wants to start an early vote program, which he says the current party does not. He's been an activist in the party for 35 years. So, you know, Michael Whatley, he's running not necessarily as an establishment candidate, but not necessarily as a reform candidate either. He is the Washington insider candidate du jour, okay? You know, this is a guy who was handpicked by somebody in the Trump White House, not necessarily Donald Trump, but somebody very, very close to President Trump. He's like, look, you want to go down to North Carolina and be chairman of the party for a while? Whatley says, okay, let's do it. You know, you can use the term bureaucrat, lobbyist. I've heard some friends on Facebook use. Look, he's the Washington insider candidate. That's how I'm gonna label him, and that is who he is. He did not communicate with me, communicate with everybody else in the room. That right there will really lose a lot of points and respect with me. That's for darn sure. Now we'll get to the best candidate out there. Jim Womack, who is a guy you really, really need to strongly consider voting for in June at the state convention. And what's neat about Jim Womack is Jim Womack wasn't even at the convention yesterday. It was his wife who spoke on his behalf. And if you listen to Jim Womack speak, he does a great job. But his wife, on the other hand, she does a phenomenal job of defining who her wife is, and you can just tell that she really loves him a lot. Okay, they both seem to have a very strong marriage, and right there, you know, if Jim Womack gets elected, you better believe his wife is going to be a huge supporter of him, and his wife's also going to do whatever it takes for the party to be victorious in 2020. But his wife said that we need strategic leadership in the party, not just hope, okay? And she also mentioned that Lee County had the highest number of minority conversion in the state of North Carolina. What does minority conversion mean? It means that Lee County had the highest number of blacks, Hispanics, Asians, whatever other non-white group there was. Highest number of minorities who changed their voter registration either from Democrat or unaffiliated to GOP. And by the way, all this was done in a Democratic-dominated county. Their record in races last year was 9. They won 9 races, lost only 1. The one race they lost was only because the candidate didn't really try to campaign. Okay, so please, strongly urge you to vote for Jim Womack. Now on our candidates list we have vice chair, and now the only candidate for vice chair at this time, Miriam Chu. She says she wants to refocus on the people that make the party strong. We can work together and have unity, and especially in the grassroots, the party should be bottom up and not top down. No county should be left behind in the state, and she says state party resources should be spent on all Republican candidates. And now we have a young Republican candidate, Madeline Keeter, who is running to be running on the Clark Reamer slate of officers for the state YR party. She is currently the first vice chair of the NCYRs, and I think she never mentioned that in her speech, but I assume she will continue, if elected at the convention in August, to continue to be first vice chair. But she is a secretary. Excuse me. Scratch that again. Madeline Keeter is running to be the first vice chair of the NCYRs. She currently serves as secretary of the NCYRs, and she lives in Gaston County, and she is running on a slate with Clark Reamer. There we go. Okay, now we have the congressman of the 10th Congressional District, Patrick McHenry. Of course, he gets a big standing ovation and applause. Patrick McHenry, I like him because he's a Republican like me, but other than that, he's not my favorite, that is for sure. His conservative review scores are very low. They're usually in the 50s or 60s. Ideally, you want somebody at least over 80, okay? But he starts out, he has this very tiny gavel, like as big as this pen. He says, "Where's Jason Saine?" And, it's kind of this gag between him and Jason Saine over the gavel and everything. He kind of had to be there to get that, but I should put that out there anyway. The congressman said that the United States is a global leader in a growing economy. The unemployment rate is half of what it was from just 4 years ago. And there's been tremendous wage growth, even though the liberals say that tax cuts only went to the elite few. The unemployment locally in the 10th District of North Carolina is as low as the 80s and the Reagan administration. Congressman also wanted to warn people the Medicare for All would double the cost of government. It's coming at $33 trillion, and the Green New Deal would cost taxpayers $93 trillion. Scary indeed. So even though I'm not a big fan of Patrick McHenry, I would still, if I lived in the 10th District and there was a general election between him and a Democrat, I would still vote for the Republican, because let me tell you something. It's the old phrase, any Republican is better than a Democrat. That's the bottom line, especially when you see what the Democrats are proposing, the Green New Deal. $93 trillion. Medicare for all, $33 trillion. Our debt right now is $20 trillion, which is a high number, but still, at least it's a lot lower than where the Democrats would, because Democrats would take us like $150 trillion, and by then I would think the economy would, I would think, would collapse at that level. Wow. Then we had Tim Moore, who's the current Speaker of the House for, the North Carolina legislature. He says North Carolina has the highest labor participation rate ever. What does this mean? Well, it means that more people are working in North Carolina than ever. He also says that North Carolina has the lowest taxes in a lifetime. I assume he means at least 100 years. And he says all gas taxes that you pay now when you fill up your car with gas go directly to roads, road construction, road maintenance. Also said the state symbol should be an orange construction cone, because it says, it's aggravating at times, but road construction is a sign of progress and good economic growth. Then we have Mrs. Pat Smith from the NC Federation of Republican Women. There are 43 clubs now all across North Carolina. That's a lot of clubs just dedicated to Republican women. There are 100 counties, but still 43, that's getting up there pretty good. 32,000 members. That's also a nice big number. And the NC Federation of Republican Women, they've been involved in North Carolina for 65 years. In 2016, 66% of women voted, while only 59% of men voted too. So that's definitely an importance to these Republican women's clubs. I have a couple in my area that I really need to check out sometime. Not necessarily because I'm single and I want to date, but just because when you have more women voting than men, the women must be doing something right in their strategy. So you might want to, pick up some tips from them. Now we have Chairman Brad Overcash, who's the chairman of the 10th Congressional District. He says each precinct chair is the GOP representative of that precinct. And, they should know up and down the ballot all the Republicans on their ballots. Also, as county party fundraising is important, and all the counties in the district need a strategic candidate recruitment to look at offices up for election, as well as pickups and seats they could take away from Democrats, and as well as retirements of candidates in those particular county. He says we shouldn't wait until 2020 filings and we shouldn't wait until 2020 at fundraisers, because 2020 is going to be a very busy year. We start the year with candidate filings, go to the convention season again, county, district, state, and then national conventions just a couple months after that. So most of the year is going to be, taken up already. And finally, Mr. Overcash posed a question to the crowd. He says, who is the Republican Party? He says, well, and somebody in the audience said, you are, and we are, and then, yeah, and said, look, Overcash said, everybody here today is the Republican Party. The Republican Party is not. The Robin Hayes situation does not represent the Republican Party. We, the activists of the party, the ones who go door to door, put up signs, make phone calls, we are the Republican Party. Okay. And now we go into the business session of the convention. My favorite part of the credentials report. Okay, so we had 5 delegates from Buncombe County. Catawba County had 10 delegates. Cleveland County had 18. Gaston County had 30. Iredell had 1 delegate. Now that is because the 10th Congressional District only covers 1 precinct in Iredell County. So that is the reason for the low number. Lincoln County had 21. Polk County had 5. And Rutherford had 12. For a grand total of 102 delegates. That is a good, nice job, 10th District. 102 people decided to show up on a beautiful, warm Saturday morning to go indoors and talk about politics for 2 hours. Amazing, right? There were only two counties had lost delegates from 2018. Buncombe County, 2 fewer delegates, and Rutherford County had 2 fewer delegates as well. But all the other counties were up in delegate count. The 102 delegates this year is up from 81 as a total from 2018. We had the report of the Rules Committee. Basically, the Rules Committee decided there was going to be no more the Rules Committee decided there was going to be no more weighted voting, which I think is a very good thing. I know at the state level still does it. I'm hoping they move to a electoral county model. And what I mean by that is if Guilford County, if 9 people vote for Jim Womack and 7 people vote for John Lewis, Jim Womack gets 1 vote for Guilford County, and whoever wins the most counties wins the election. But now we have the election of district officers, and Brad Overcash and his slate was elected by acclamation. So what happened was Brad Overcash read his slate Nobody presented another slate, and there was no objection in the audience, so therefore he was elected via acclamation. And then we had the election of at-large members, which this is the most important part of these district conventions. And this is why, if you live in North Carolina, you really need to go to these district conventions in the odd number of years, because not only are you voting for your district chairman, you're also voting for if you want to go on the executive state and district executive committee. And this was done very quickly. The chairman of each county, basically they read off a list of names, and that was who went on the state executive committee. When I was in District 7 about 5 or 6 years ago now, we actually the convention stopped. We were in recess for a few minutes, and we actually caucused with our county to see who wanted to go on executive committee. One year, I believe it was 2011, okay, and actually the chairwoman, Rhonda Omarosa, asked me beforehand if I wanted to go on the executive committee. I said, absolutely. Basically, we just picked... We needed like 4 people. We got 4 people. Nobody else was interested. But then 2 years later, there was 5 people who wanted to go on executive committee, and only 4 spots. So we had to take a vote amongst everybody who was in the county. And fortunately, I got the second lowest vote. The first lowest vote obviously was not on the committee, but I survived re-election in 2013, barely. And then we had a report from the Resolutions Committee, and this is kind of the difference in the convention from last year to this year. Last year, you had a resolution on closing the primaries, okay? This year, there were no resolutions present, and the chairman of the convention, Representative Jason Saine, said a remark which I don't necessarily agree with, but he said, those are people who respect Saturdays, the fact that we don't have resolutions. Right after resolutions, there was a motion to adjourn, and this convention only took an hour and a half. This was a record short convention. In a way, I was hoping to go a little bit longer. The convention in 2018 was 37 minutes longer. It ended at 12:10. This year's convention ended at 11:33. So I was home by like a little after 1. I was home by like 1:05, 1:10 in the afternoon, when I thought I would be at the convention at least noon, 1 o'clock. Wouldn't get home till like at least 2 or 3. But crazy. But I know. So this Saturday I have the 13th district. That's my district. And if the 13th district convention is as short as the 10th district convention, I'll be able to go to the 8th district convention. And then the Saturday after that, that's Easter weekend, no conventions. I'll be working all weekend. And then on the 27th is the Grand Big Kahuna Convention. That's the 3rd district, and if the 3rd district convention only takes an hour and a half, there's going to be some explaining to do. That convention should be at least probably a good 5 or 6 hours long. And after that, time permitting, I'll be at the 2nd district convention on Saturday the 27th at 6 p.m. Yeah, fun stuff. Anyway, for the Conservative Pelican, I am Bobby Crawford. See ya.